Hi, this is Canon Schultz. This video is a video for me to answer your inquiries and your questions about the first set of quizzes. Um, I, I think the class did well overall, and I believe I said you should think of it as a pre-test, and in that sense it was successful. I have an idea of where everybody is. And you're right where I thought you would be. The range was from one answer correct to three answers correct. Nobody got all four. And the average was two out of four. So I think that's what I expected. I think the first thing to remember is, and I said this, that I'm trying to show you the differences between the Book of Common Prayer and the missals and the calendar. The calendar, the Ordo calendar that Bishop Upham puts together, is based on the missals, and the feast days and things like that are just going to be different than what the prayer book has. So remember, unless I say it differently, the questions are all going to be based on according to the prayer book, according to the 1928 Book of Common Prayer. And if you keep that in mind, and are able to sort out the differences between the missals and the 1928 Book of Common Prayer, you'll do fine on the questions. Obviously, you don't know all the rubrics and the little things that need to be, the tables and things like that show you how you determine what feasts are celebrated and what feasts are just commemorated. So, in fact, the first thing I want to do is to go over the handout called Definitions of Terms. Now, I sent you out one, and I believe it's dated April 2014. I forget, April 3rd or something like that, 2014. I'm going to be sending you out, if I don't forget, a second table of definitions that are dated October 7th, 2016. And it's just an updated version. I may be doing this on other times, that I'll update a handout that I already sent to you, update it, and then ask you to get rid of your previous form and stick with the updated one. All right. The first definition, if you look at this History and Use of the Book of Common Prayer, Definition of Terms, that's what it's called, BCP, simply Book of Common Prayer. I use that a lot just to simplify, so I don't have to type out Book of Common Prayer. So if I use that, well, you'll know what I'm talking about. Unless I use some other date, we're pretty much talking about the 1928 Book of Common Prayer. The second term is celebrate a feast. This is right below it. Celebrate a feast means you use the propers for the feast that you are celebrating. For example, when you celebrate the Feast of All Saints, you use the propers for All Saints' Day. And then the note is, see, commemorate a feast. And if you go down to the bottom of this page, you'll see commemorate a feast. This means you use the collect for the feast day that you are commemorating after the collect for the feast that you are celebrating. For example, on the Sunday in the octave of All Saints, you say the collect for the Sunday in Trinity that you are celebrating, followed by the collect for All Saints' Day. So, for example, I'm going to look at my calendar over here. Of course, it's for October, right? Let me look at this calendar down here. Okay, All Saints' Day is a Tuesday. The Sunday in the octave is November 6th. So on November 6th, you would celebrate the feast of whatever Trinity Sunday that is, and following the collect for that Trinity Sunday, you would read the collect for All Saints' Day. All right. Now, since my parish is called All Saints, we always celebrate All Saints' Day on a Sunday, and you can do that. Generally, we do it on the Sunday in the octave. This year, for various reasons, including the Bishop Upham's visit, we're going to do it the Sunday before. When I celebrate a feast the Sunday before, I'm anticipating it, is the term. If I celebrate it on the Sunday in the octave, I've transferred it. It's always appropriate to celebrate your church's name day on Sunday near whatever date it is. Now, sometimes you're going to have a problem with that because if you would, for example, if your church was the Church of the Annunciation, it'd be a little hard to celebrate that in March because it's generally going to fall on a Sunday in Lent. But anyway, I think you get the idea there. Now, if All Saints falls on a Sunday, which it will from time to time, then you say the collect of All Saints, so followed by the collect for the Sunday in Trinity that it is. In this case, you are celebrating All Saints and commemorating the Sunday. The rubric here is in the table of precedence, and it's 51, or small li. I'm going to look that up here, and you might want to keep this small l. You're going to need this particular reference. But if you look there, and under the tables of precedence, you see, okay, at the bottom of the page, just above the words "a table," just above there, on these holy days, the collect, epistle, and gospel for the feast shall be used, but on Sundays, the collect for the feast shall be followed by the collect for the Sunday. So this is what happens if All Saints falls on a Sunday. You celebrate All Saints' Day, but you follow the collect of All Saints with the collect for the Sunday. All right. Feria. Go a little farther down here. In ecclesiastical language, the term feria is applied to days on which no feast falls. On a feria, you follow the rubric at the top of page 90 of the Book of Common Prayer. And that rubric says, "The collect, epistle, and gospel appointed for the Sunday shall serve all the week after, where it is not in this book otherwise ordered." That emphasis is mine. There are feria days where propers are appointed, and you see the rubrics for Christmas, Ash Wednesday, and the Ascension. Those Sundays, or those days, have their own rubrics. I can tell you, for example, Ash Wednesday says the lessons will be used until the following Sunday, unless, I believe I can't remember exactly which.
Thank you for calling All Saints Anglican Church. We're an Anglican parish which celebrates the traditional Episcopal liturgy. We're located at 131 East Fountain Road in Bolingbrook.
A toll-free call. It wasn't anybody that I needed to answer. Oh, okay. Ash Wednesday. Getting back to Ash Wednesday, you celebrate the Ash Wednesday. Usually the lessons on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I think it's the feast of Saint Matthias intervenes, in which case you would use the propers for Saint Matthias. Octave. In Christian liturgical usage, the 8th day after a feast reckoned inclusively, and so always falling on the same day of the week as the feast itself. The Feast of the Circumcision is the octave day of Christmas and always falls on the same day of the week. So if, as it does, Christmas falls on Sunday, the circumcision falls on Sunday. The term is also applied to the whole period of these 8 days, during which the observance of certain major feast days came to be continued. In the prayer book, Christmas, Epiphany, Easter, Ascension, and All Saints have octaves. Technically, Trinity Sunday, Pentecost, or Whitsunday and Pentecost doesn't, because you doesn't have an octave, because you only use the you only use the proper preface and the collect until Saturday. The octave day, Trinity Sunday, has its own set of propers. Ordinary of the Mass. The ordinary of the Mass is the fixed part of the Eucharist. The ordinary of the Mass doesn't change, the propers do. And then the next one is propers, the parts of the Eucharist which changes according to the festival or ecclesiastical season. Major propers are the collect, epistle, gospel, and the proper preface. The minor propers are the introit, gradual, tract, sequence, offertory, secret prayer, communion sentence, post-communion prayer, and the last gospel. Generally, the last gospel, if you use it, is John 1:1, but for example, on Christmas Day, you read something else. And then, when I'm asking for propers too, again, assume I'm talking about the major propers. I'm not. That's what, when I ask a question about the propers, that's what I'm asking. Oh, and when it comes to answering questions, saying things like the propers for Christmas Day, that's an acceptable answer. And I would prefer you actually answer your questions that way. And then finally, rubrics. Rubrics or ceremonial directions printed at the beginning of service books or in the course of the text. The word originated from the fact that in the medieval books they were written in red, Latin ruber, to distinguish them from the text of the services. So those are the ones I want to emphasize right now. As I said, I may update this again later on. I may not. I don't know what's going to happen as I go through these things. Well, then I think, well, that's interesting. You should have a copy of that. All right, let's get to the questions themselves. What propers are used for a Mass celebrated on January 1st, 2014? Well, it's the propers of the circumcision plus the collect for Christmas Day. The rubric there is page 96, and go to page 96. In the middle of the page there has the collect for Christmas Day, and it says, this collect is to be said daily throughout the octave. Excuse me. Now, I believe at least one of the missals leaves out the collect for Christmas Day on the circumcision, but that's not what the prayer book says. You would say the collect for the circumcision followed by the collect for Christmas Day. And those of you who got it wrong, I don't think anybody missed the collect, even the propers for the circumcision. I think everybody got that. But several of you left out the collect for Christmas Day. Question 2. What propers are used for Mass celebrated on January 3rd, 2014? I use these just simply because that's the question I used back then, and it illustrates, these next two illustrate something I want to explain. The propers for January 3rd, that year January 3rd is a Friday. One of the things I wanted to point out is that the octave day of St. John is not a prayer book holy day, and I think everybody who missed it said you'd use the lessons for the octave of St. John. I think the one person who got it, well, obviously the one person who got it didn't answer that. when you have a Sunday, and like in this case, you go, or I mean a Friday in this case, you go back to the last Sunday. And the rubric for that, again, is on page 90. At the top of the page, the collect, epistle, and gospel appointed for the Sunday shall serve all the week after, where it is not in this book otherwise ordered. So, in this case, the last Sunday before January 3rd is December 29th, and December 29th is the first Sunday after Christmas. So, the lessons for Friday the 3rd are the propers for the first Sunday after Christmas. I should point out, the collect for the first Sunday after Christmas and the collect for Christmas Day are the same collect. So while you're using the collect for Christmas Day, you're not using it because it's in the octave of Christmas. The octave of Christmas is over by the 3rd, but you're using it because the collect for Christmas 1 is the same prayer. Okay. Then third, what propers are used for a Mass celebrated on January 10th? That's the following Friday. Now, in between the following Friday, there has been the second Sunday after Christmas and the Epiphany. So, for question 3, the answer is the propers for the Epiphany. Again, going to 109. The same epistle and gospel shall serve unto the next Sunday. Interesting. Oh. And if you say to yourself, well, it doesn't say anything about the collect. Well, that's on page 108 at the top. This collect is to be said daily throughout the octave. So, in the case of the 10th, you use the propers for the Epiphany, which is the correct answer. However, some of you said, well, you use the propers for the Epiphany because it's in the octave of the Epiphany, and that's not the correct reason. The correct reason is the rubrics on page 108 and 109. If the Epiphany were later on in the week, say on Wednesday, then you wouldn't use the lessons for the Epiphany on Monday and Tuesday. You would use the first Sunday after the Epiphany. You wouldn't use the epistle and gospel. You would use the collect, because the collect is used because it's the octave of Epiphany. The lessons wouldn't be used because it's not between the Epiphany and the Saturday. In other words, it's the following Sunday. I probably made you more confused. Okay, so again, for the 10th, let me try to clear this up. For the 10th, you use the epistle and gospel for the Epiphany based on the rubric for page 109, and you use the collect for the Epiphany based on the rubric on page 108. All right. Now, on January 5th, 2014, what lessons are read at morning prayer and what lessons are read at evening prayer? Well, one thing first is that the Vigil of the Epiphany is not a prayer book holy day. So, that particular day for the Sunday Mass is the second Sunday after Christmas. That's simple enough. The second thing to know is that the numbered days after Christmas, that is December 29th through the 31st, January 2 through 5, and January 7 through 13, are never used on Sunday. Now that's something, until now, I'm sure most of you didn't know. The numbered days are only used for the weekdays. So, for example, on December 29th, in December of 2013, you don't use the lessons for December 29th on Sunday. You use the lessons for Christmas 1. You do use those lessons for the 30th and the 31st. And then you would actually use the lessons for 2, 3, and 4, January 2, 3, and 4, in that week. I think I need to clarify one thing, and that's that there's really two lectionaries. There's the Holy Communion lectionary, and then there's the daily office, morning and evening prayer lectionary. And they're not, they're used separately. So the reasons for doing one thing doesn't always apply to the other one. Excuse me. All right. So in this case, the morning lessons for January 5th, and if you turn to that particular page in the lectionary, so it's Sunday, January 5th, but it's the second Sunday after Christmas. So the lessons are there where it says second Sunday after Christmas. Now, the lessons that I would use are the lesson for Micah and Luke. You will notice this later on, and I'll mention it again, but the asterisks on the Old Testament lesson at morning prayer are the ones that are recommended if you're doing morning prayer with one lesson before the service, before the Holy Communion. And well, anyway, that's the lesson that you would use. I know some people, some parishes, use 3 different lessons, and this would be the Old Testament lesson that you would use, the one with the asterisk. And if you look at, just as we're here, where it says January 12th, if you look at the dagger, it says, note that the Psalms and lessons for the dated days after the Epiphany are to be used only to the following Sunday. So again, in this case, there is a January 12th, but that's the Sunday, so you would not use January 12th. You would use the first Sunday after the Epiphany. So the morning lessons are for the second Sunday after Christmas. But the evening lessons are for the eve of the Epiphany. Now, if you look on the other page at 13, you'll see that January 5th isn't called January 5th, it's called Epiphany Eve. So you use those lessons, the Isaiah 49 and the Luke 3, use those because the eve of the Epiphany has precedence over the Sunday. And if you see, again, if we go to the tables on 50, 51 LI, I could say several things, but say this different ways, but pretty much you want to know what's on page 51, the tables and rules, because a lot of the questions are going to be based on that. All right. If you look, let's see. All right, where it says tables of precedence. The holy days following have precedence of any other Sunday or holy day. Sundays in Advent, Christmas Day, the Epiphany. So it has, Epiphany has precedence over the second Sunday. The second Sunday after Christmas. And the reason you don't, the eve of Epiphany starts in the evening. That's why the evening prayer is the Epiphany Eve, but the morning prayer is Christmas 2. I have a note here. See the rubric on 7, VII. Turn back here. Oh, I think I know what that's going to say. The rubric on page 7, VII, second to the last paragraph. On the following days and their eves, if any, the proper psalms appointed in the tables shall be used. Christmas Epiphany. I'll get back to that when we talk about the psalms and how you say the psalms at the daily office. But keep in mind that on the dates that are listed there, the prayer book tells you you must use the psalms that are found in the tables of the lectionary. All right. So that's it at this point. That's why the answers are the way they are. Again, if I remember, I will send out that updated definition of terms, and so you'll have that. All right, that's all I'm going to talk about. It's just about 26 minutes in, so I will hopefully have the next lecture up sometime Wednesday. So long. Bye.